This year, experience the NHL playoffs your way. Want to watch a single? Do or die Game 7, a full week of heavy-hitting back-and-forth series. Then check out Sling's 1, 3, and 7-day passes. Watch the Chase for the Cup on ESPN and TNT, starting as low as $4.99. No long-term contracts or overpaying. Just live hockey at home or when you want it. Sling lets you do that. Visit sling.com to learn more.
Walters is a great place to watch the NBA Finals with friends. It's open late and located right across the street from Nationals Park.
Shadows beginning to creep out on the field. Swing by Tatis and a drive to deep left. Way back, going, and long gone. Goodbye. Fernando Tatis. And it's the third solo home run hit by the Padres in the last 4 innings. And it's now San Diego 3 and Washington 1.
Big spot for Millis, who homered in the third inning. Trying to tie it up or put the Nats in front. Rodriguez sets at the belt. Fires to the plate. Swinging a ground ball right side. Second baseman Tatis throws to second for one. And Cruz with a great takeout slide on Bogarts. Cannot make a throw to first. And the tying run scores. Crossing the plate is Tena. It's now 3-3. Over to third, Bibas. Safe at first is Millis. And the game tied. Padres are looking at a replay to see if Cruz, they're going to challenge Cruz' slide at second. The takeout slide.
After review, the ruling on the field stands. The runner is safe.
So there you have it. So Cruz is in fact safe at second. And Craig Stammen's coming out with his palms up. Craig Stammen's not been ejected from a game this year. Craig may get his first ejection here. He wants to talk to Dan Bellino. And Craig Stammen's been ejected. And they're at the corners for Dalen Lyle, the 9th man to bat. The pitch. Swinging a ground ball toward Tatis at second. He fields, shovels to Bogarts for one. On to first. Safe. Lyle hustles it out. That'll score Mead. And the Nationals add another run. They've scored 6 in the inning. It's 7-3.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's at Nationals Park, where the Nats offense on Saturday struck again. A 9-4 win over the San Diego Padres at Nationals Park in Game 2 of a 3-game series. This was a game in which the Nats overcame a 3-1 7th-inning deficit by scoring 6 runs in the bottom of the 7th. Although, boy, was that an unconventional 6-run 7th. But the Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are back above 500, 30-29, 11-17 at home versus 19-12 on the road. We have a website that we invite you to check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. A new batch of shirts is being printed early next week. They are available for pre-order. Again, the site is natschatpodcast.com. And to thank you to a loyal Nats Chat supporter, Jamie Coppersmith, for wearing a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt while performing at City Ridge in Tenleytown with his band recently. And you should have seen how many groupies were around our guy Jamie as he performed in his Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. They treated Jamie like he was Bad Bunny. It's got to be the shirt, people. I'm telling you, natschatpodcast.com. So the Nats this season have played so few boring, uneventful games. The overwhelming majority of the games have been wild games, right? And this game on Saturday was the latest wild game, highlighted by the 6-run 7th. And there are so many wacky things about that 6-run 7th. You had the Nats in the 6-run 7th, totaling a mere 2 hits, each of which was a single. That was it. A 6-run inning for the Nats, despite them having 2 hits in the inning, and each hit was just a single. Yet the 6-run 7th ruining the final line of the Padres starting pitcher, Michael King. He officially allowed 5 runs, 4 earned in 6 innings. He allowed 1 run in 6 innings, but then got charged with 4 runs in that Nats 6-run 7th. And the Nats 6-run 7th included the Padres manager, the former Nats relief pitcher Craig Stammen, getting ejected. So his first managerial ejection ends up happening in the stadium that was his home stadium for years as a player, Nationals Park. Mark, that 6-run 7th for the Nats was quite the inning.
Al, there were more fielders' choices in that inning than there were hits. Okay, that tells you everything you need to know right there. It was crazy. It was truly a bizarre rally. We have seen this team string together hits. We've seen them hit a bunch of home runs. We've seen them score runs in bunches. I don't think we've really seen them do it like they did in this case. It's not even like there was great contact, a couple of decent ones, but it was mostly, a couple of important walks, a hit by pitch, and some hustle. That might be the story of that inning, to be honest. Dalen Lyle busting down the line to prevent a double play that would have ended the inning. Instead, he's safe and the runner scores behind him. Dylan Cruz going hard into second base, creating all kinds of chaos on that play. C.J. Abrams was running hard into second base on another misplay by the Padres defense, kind of forcing that issue. And so it was actually nice to see that they did it in a different way than we've become accustomed to. They don't have to just do this with power. They don't have to do it with a string of hits. It was just kind of making things happen as they did that inning and sort of taking advantage of the Padres' mistakes behind them. And it was quite something to watch, and it got the crowd into it, and it completely flipped that game on its head.
The game was not looking like it was going to be a very successful game for the Washington Nationals, and the game changed on a dime with what happened in that inning. It's almost like the Nats got bored with being a great offensive team in a normal way and said, you know what, today we're going to try to score a bunch of runs in one inning on just 2 hits, each of which is a single, and we'll have a bunch of fielder's choices. We'll have a bases loaded hit by pitch, a bases loaded walk. I mean, the inning was just wild, but the Nats ultimately get to 9 runs. By the way, 9 runs on 8 hits. How about this game? The Nats win by 5 runs. Despite having as many hits as walks issued. The Nats totaled 8 hits. Nats pitchers issued 8 walks. And yet the Nats won by 5 runs. I mean, again, we talk about like a wacky game. This was a wacky game.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know how you would normally draw that one up for it to happen that way. And like you said, I mean, for 6 innings, Michael King is completely cruising. I think it's 64 pitches through 6 innings. And the other little unspoken thing in this, he takes the mound for the bottom of the 7th and he doesn't like the dirt on the mound. And he called for time and they brought out the grounds crew to patch up his landing spot on the mound. And it took a little while for that to be done. You think, okay, well, that'll solve the problem. He'll be fine. And then he never retired another batter. So I have no idea if that got in his head or if, they didn't do a good enough job fixing up the mound and it threw him off. Whatever the case, he might be regretting the fact that he asked for that time to fix things up because he was not the same pitcher after they fixed the mound that he was before they ever touched it.
Yeah, I mean, Michael King was looking like he might throw a complete game. He was being that effective and was that efficient. And instead, he ends up with a final line of 5 runs, 4 earned in 6 innings. It's hard to remember a pitcher looking like he was on his way to such a good day and then ending up having a really bad day. It was crazy how this all played out. So in terms of individual offensive standouts for the Nats in this game, how about Curtis Mead? What about what this guy is doing right now? He's having this incredible month of May. His overall numbers for the season now are tremendous. Curtis Mead in this game doesn't even start, and he ends up totaling 3 RBI. Not bad. Came off the bench to pinch hit and play third base. He went 1 for 1 with a 2-run double and a bases-loaded walk. Mead in the Nats' 6-run 7th, a pinch bases-loaded walk for a 4-3 Nats lead. And then how about the 2-run double, a 2-run 8th, with the game actually still relatively close with the way the Nats pitching ended up being, at least from one relief pitcher. But Mead in the Nats' 2-run 8th, a 2-out, 2-run double to left field for a 9-4 Nats lead. Curtis Mead now has an OPS of 876. We've talked about James Wood and C.J. Abrams as the 2 900 OPS guys. Curtis Mead is flirting with joining that group in terms of a 900 OPS on the season, just continuing to produce. He's having an outstanding month of May. Curtis Mead in this month of May, 420 on base percentage, 538 slugging percentage. And like I said, doesn't even start on Saturday and ends up being really productive.
And I'm sure there were a lot of people, and I heard from many of them when I posted the lineup, who were wondering, why isn't he starting, given how well he's been doing lately? Why in the world would he not be in this lineup? Well, it began with the idea that Butera wanted as many lefties as possible against Michael King, and that didn't work in the end to do that. But he also knew that as soon as King's out of the game, that he could then go to these guys off the bench and kind of do the line change like we've seen him do very often. And it allowed him to pick his spot for Mead. So he didn't have him tied to one particular place in the lineup. And he decided, I'm going to pinch hit him for Nasim Nunez, one of the weakest hitters on the team. And he does that, and he draws the bases loaded walk. So another quality at bat, and then comes back the next inning with the 2-run double. And so it's just further evidence that you don't necessarily have to be in the starting lineup to impact the game in a big way. That may not be conventional thinking, but we have now seen 2 months of this. The way that Blake Butera manages a game, being out of the lineup is not a bad thing necessarily. In some ways, it might actually set you up to have a better chance of success in a big spot late in the game where the manager is now picking which spot he wants you in, and it worked perfectly with Mead in this one.
Yeah, it's almost like a lot of times now in the NFL, especially on defense, don't pay attention to who starts. Like, it's more how many snaps do you play? And with Blake Butera lineups and Blake Butera position players, maybe we should just look at it as, hey, how many plate appearances do you get? And what do you do with those plate appearances? And maybe we shouldn't get too sucked into who's starting. But man, Curtis Mead just has been so good. If I would have told you as we approach the end of May, the Nats' #1 third baseman has an 876 OPS, you would have said, wow, Brady House is killing it. And instead, Brady House is at AAA Rochester, and Curtis Mead is the guy with the 876 OPS. Big hit from Luis Garcia Jr. in this game. He was the Nats starting first baseman and #2 batter, 2 for 4, 2-run single and another single. We talk about the 2 singles in the 6-run 7th. Well, Garcia had one of them, a 1-out bases loaded 2-run single into right center field to put the Nats up 6-3, despite him having been down in the count at 1.12. Also with the Nats offense in this game, Drew Millis homered. So the great offensive production from Nats catchers in this month is not just confined to Keibert Ruiz. Okay, maybe I shouldn't say great, but Millis did homer in this game. He was the Nats starting catcher and #8 batter, 1 for 4 with a solo homer and an RBI fielder's choice grounder. Millis in the Nats 1-run third, 1-out first pitch solo homer to right field to tie the game at 1. Look at this game. The Nats wind up with 9 runs. James Wood went 1 for 5 with a single. C.J. Abrams went 1 for 4 with a single. The Wood and Abrams-led offense in this game didn't get a ton from Wood and Abrams, and yet the Nats still put up 9 runs.
That's a great sign if you can do that. And as we've noted so many times, they're getting it from up and down the lineup. And even the guys who maybe don't have great individual stats are still finding a way to come through in spots that matter. And this was a good example of it in this game. In Wood's defense, he crushed a ball in the 3rd inning that on any other day would have landed in the left field bullpen. But the wind was so strong today blowing in that it knocked it down and it died at the warning track. That was a good quality at bat from him. He just didn't get the result, unfortunately. So I don't want to, knock him too much for this one. But yeah, I mean, it has been more and more encouraging to see how they can score runs without always having to rely on their best 2 hitters.
And I mentioned a bases loaded hit by pitch for the Nats in the 6-run 7th. The bases loaded hit by pitch drawn by Dylan Cruz. He was a Nats starting center fielder and #7 batter, 0 for 3, but he drew that bases loaded hit by pitch, a first pitch bases loaded hit by pitch to cut the Nats deficit to 3-2. And for Dylan Cruz, another game in which he hits multiple balls hard, 3rd inning ground out, exit velocity per Statcast 100.8 miles per hour, 5th inning ground out, exit velo 103.5 miles per hour. It's like, man, he's doing some good stuff. Elevate, we had this conversation about him last season, but it's like he's right there, but he's still not there, and so we're still waiting on that, but he's doing some good stuff here. And so just continue to do that, and hopefully the results that we all want do end up coming.
Yeah, I don't think it's a major tweak on his part. It's just adjusting that launch angle a tiny bit, and he should be okay. And again, in his defense, everybody was hitting the ball into the ground for those first 5-6 innings. King was doing a masterful job of getting them to reach and hit the ball on the ground. Even if it was hard, it was still turning into outs. Cruz also had the hustle into second base on really maybe the play of the game, certainly the most controversial play where it looks like he's going to be out. It's a potential 4-6-3 that could have ruined the whole inning. And instead he goes in hard, and Xander Bogaerts, the shortstop, he thinks he's going to try to turn the double play. He can't because Cruz comes into him so hard. And the second base umpire, Dan Bellino, to his credit, saw it live. Bogart's foot was never on the bag.
And Cruz with a great takeout slide on Bogaerts cannot make a throw to first, and the tying run scores.
And he called him safe. The Padres challenged it. You watched the replay, and it was really close, but not enough to overturn. It got Craig Stammen ejected for the first time. Quick story here. This is just coincidence. I was talking to Randy Knorr before the game. He's now the Padres bench coach and, of course, longtime Nationals coach and minor league manager and everything else. And I asked him, has Stammen been ejected from a game yet? And Randy said, no. He kind of laughed and said, he's still trying to find the right time to do it. Well, he found the right time to do it. It was right here at Nationals Park. And so for those who know the history, how about this? Randy Knorr finally got the chance to manage a game at Nationals Park. How many years left after the fact, after he was hoping to be the full-time manager here, he finally got to do it. But that was a weird, wild sequence. Cruz said he didn't know what was going on.
No, I had no idea what was going on, honestly.
He thought maybe they were arguing that he obstructed Bogaerts, and thankfully he just stayed on the base when he was there, because if he'd gotten off it, he could have been tagged at any point. Just a weird play, but they got it right in the end. Bogaerts was not on the base. Cruz slid hard on him, and that helped keep that inning going.
Yeah, and the inning went on and on and on, and the Nats kept finding ways to prolong the inning, and ultimately a 6-run bottom of the 7th inning. Another example of the resilience of the offense. You know, it's always a tricky thing when people talk about like an offense in baseball being resilient. Like, you know, an offense itself doesn't necessarily have like a personality or like character traits. But if you just look at like what the offense has done this season, so many times has forged rallies, has made comeback attempts that often have ended up being successful. Certainly this game was successful. But this team is never out of just about any game because of the potential for this offense to erupt. This is an explosive offense that has had so many big innings already, and another big one comes, and then 2 more runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. In another example, by the way, of the Nats denying an opposing team a shutdown inning. The Padres score a run in the top of the 8th. The Nats answer right back with that Curtis Mead 2-run double in the bottom of the 8th, again giving the Nats a comfortable lead, in this case 9-4, and that proved to be the final.
Right, and I think, you know, you make a good point. Once you've started to do this as much as they have this year, even though they look like awful at the plate for 6 innings, you're still saying to yourself, they have a chance. It did not feel that out of character for them to still have that rally in them and then to sustain that and keep it going. And they were feeding off each other, I think, as that played out. They were feeding off the crowd as well. I don't know how much it came across over TV, but you had the section of kids/young adults. I'm not sure exactly how old they are, but they're acting like kids up in the upper deck in right field with the tarps off. This started in St. Louis a couple weeks ago. It's catching on other places now. It's not an official thing. The Nats didn't like sponsor this or anything, but they kind of organized it themselves. Kids take their shirt off, they're twirling their shirts in the air, making a lot of noise. And what you saw over the course of the game is fans were picking up on it and joining them, and the section kept getting bigger and louder. It created a lot of energy inside the ballpark during those final innings. The players absolutely felt it and noticed it and fed off it. This was, you know, it's a regular season game. I get it's not, you know, pennant race, not playoffs, anything like that. But the way the crowd was responding to some of those late inning events that were going on, it felt like the kind of environment that we haven't seen here in a long time, where they were truly into it. And the team feeds off that kind of stuff. They absolutely do.
Official attendance, 30,765. That's a really good number. 30,765 for Nats Padres on Saturday at Nationals Park.
The 0-1. So, a fly ball deep left on a line toward the corner. The wind's not going to knock this one down. It hits the foul pole screen for a home run for Machado. He didn't hit high enough to get it impacted by the wind. And Machado answers the Millis home run with a solo shot of his own, his 10th of the year. And the Padres are back in front 2-1.
So the Nats starting pitcher for this win over the Padres at Nationals Park on Saturday was Foster Griffin. He allowed 3 runs in 5 innings. So for a third time in 4 outings, a final line that isn't too good. But there's a lot of nuance to this outing from Foster Griffin. He gave up 5 hits. 3 of them were home runs, also gave up 2 singles. He issued 2 walks into hit by pitch, but he recorded 5 strikeouts. He did throw a lot of pitches, but he also threw a good number of strikes, 90 pitches over 5 innings, as the Padres fouled off a bunch of the pitches, but ultimately 58 strikes, 32 balls. And, you talk sometimes about like a pitcher scattering singles. Foster Griffin in this game scattered solo homers. He allowed 3 solo homers. That's not good. You gave up 3 homers, but he scattered them. Each homer was a solo homer. One came in the second, one came in the fourth, one came in the fifth. So some things to process here with Foster Griffin. There's also this, too. He was so good early on that we now look at him through this prism of we expect like excellence. And, I guess that's unfair, although, he set the bar high. But 3 runs in 5 innings, again, it's not good, but it's not like this was some wretched outing by Foster Griffin either.
Yeah, agreed. And as he pointed out afterwards, you can kind of live with solo homers as a starting pitcher. Now, 3 is a lot, yes. But if you're not giving up anything else, you can live with that.
Yeah, I mean, typically as a starting pitcher, solos aren't going to hurt you, right? 3 of them, it is what it is, right?
The story of this to me was the same thing that we saw Friday night. The Padres just know how to work an at-bat. They fouled off over 20 of his pitches, I believe. We talked about the high pitch count the night before. And as Griffin described it, you can only do so much to try to combat that because they're also really well disciplined. And if you don't put it over the plate, they're just going to take it. So you can't get them to chase that much either. It's a great mystery why the Padres actually have one of the league's least productive lineups, because you look at the names in that lineup and you say, well, this should be one of the best in baseball, given who they have in it. And just watching them these last 2 nights, I can see why they should be better than this. Tatis finally hit his first home run. Obviously, Machado and Bogarts are good hitters. Give them time and they're going to figure it out. But they have shown the Nationals pitching staff just how tough they are by fouling off tough pitches with 2 strikes and then laying off pitches out of the strike zone. I think that had as much to do with it as anything that Foster Griffin was doing. And, we'll talk about Sunday's game, but that's probably going to be the storyline from the Nats standpoint pitching-wise is can they somehow get quicker outs and prevent the Padres from these long innings that force you to go to the bullpen early. That's a tough lineup, and I think Griffin did about as well as he could have given who he was facing.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The Nats won this game by 5 runs despite Nats pitchers totaling 174 pitches to Padres pitchers totaling just 120 pitches. So Nats pitchers, and it was 9 innings versus 8 innings for Padres pitchers, but Nats pitchers threw 54 more pitches than Padres pitchers threw in this game. The Padres are an odd team just when you look at the profile. Even with this loss, 7 games above 500, 32-25, but a negative run differential, -4, a run differential that is worse than that of the Nats. The Nats now are at a -1 run differential. So a win on Sunday afternoon could bring the Nats at least to an even run differential, if not a positive one. But the other thing with the Padres is, like the Nats, the Padres have been a lot better on the road as compared to at home. So kind of an odd deal with the Padres. Of course, they play in what so far has been a pretty good division in the National League West. And then the Nats bullpen in this 9-4 win over the Padres at Nationals Park on Saturday overall ended up being good. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 4 innings. Brad Lord, terrific again. 2 scoreless and hitless innings, 2 strikeouts. Gus Varland had an odd outing. 1 run in 2/3 of an inning. He, in the top of the 8th, retired each of the first 2 batters he faced, so that was obviously good. And then he, completely fell apart. He issued a 2-out walk of Miguel Andujar, issued a 2-out wild pitch, gave up a 2-out RBI double by Manny Machado to left field to cut the Nats' lead to 7-4, despite having had Machado down at 1.02, issued a 2-out 4-pitch walk of Jackson Merrill, and issued a 2-out 4-pitch walk of Xander Bogaerts. Varland threw 30 pitches in 2/3 of an inning, just 12 strikes versus 18 balls. But then Clayton Beeter came into the game, and he was awesome. He tossed 1 1/3 scoreless and hitless innings for a 4-out save. The biggest out that he got was the first out that he got. Came into the game in that top of the 8th. Bases loaded, 2 outs. Nats holding on to a 7-4 lead. And Beeter induced a ground out to shortstop C.J. Abrams by Ty France. And then Beeter tossed a scoreless top of the 9th despite issuing 2 walks. So good stuff from Lord and Beeter. Good stuff initially from Varland. And then things went awry for him.
I mean, he didn't just walk these batters. He's bouncing everything in the dirt. He looked totally lost up there. And that's not who he's been this year. So I don't know what was going on with him at that point. But that made, to me, the sneaky most important moment or at bat of this game was Beeter coming in with the bases loaded and getting Ty France to ground out.
Machado the runner at third, Merrill the runner at second, Bogaerts the runner at first. 7-4 Nationals. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 out, top of the 8th. Beeter kicks and delivers, and a swing and a ground ball chopped to short. Abrams has it, charging in, throw to first on the money to Garcia, and the inning is over.
If he doesn't get him, the entire complexion of this game could change, and all of a sudden the Nats are on their heels, and the Padres are trying to come back and rally after giving up the 6 runs themselves the previous inning. So that was really big for Beeter, who, as we know, hasn't pitched a whole lot of big spots because he was on the IL for a while, and he comes back, has not necessarily been the de facto closer like he was before he got hurt. In this case, Blake Butera did use him essentially as the closer, and he came through big for them. And I thought that was a really important outing for Beeter to clean up that mess that Varland created and then come back in the 9th and finish it off as well.
And Brad Lord now, I mean, what a great season this guy's having. 17 games, all in relief, 37 innings. His ERA is down to 2.68. His whip is at 1. He just continues to produce, and it's almost like it's not even noteworthy anymore just because we've come to sort of expect this from him at this point. He's had so few bad outings, too. I feel like he has been the Nats' most consistent reliever. There are some guys who have in some ways decent numbers, but you know that they've had some rough outings. I'm not saying Lord has been great every time out, but by and large, I feel like he's been way more good than bad. There have been few bad outings from him, and obviously his overall numbers speak to that.
Who did I just compare him to the other night? Who did I say from Nationals history he reminded me of? Craig Stammen. That's exactly what Brad Lord is doing right now, giving you multiple innings whenever you need it. Big spots, low leverage spots, it doesn't matter to him. There's a lot of Craig Stammen and Brad Lord. And if he can end up having Craig Stammen's career, that would be outstanding for Brad Lord and for the Nationals.
So, Game 3 of this 3-game series against the Padres, Sunday afternoon at 1:35. Zach Littell is listed as the Nats' probable starting pitcher, and we'll see if the Nats use an opener or not. But Sunday is May 31st. The Nats entered this month of May with a record of 15-17. A win would put the Nats at 31-29. So a win would put the Nats as having had a 16-12 month of May. What a wonderful record that would be if the Nats could attain that for this month of May.
It would be fantastic. And even if they don't, that's 15 wins for the month. And Dusty Baker used to say, you win 15 games a month, you're going to win 90 games for the season. That was always his target. Anything more than that is great. But if you can get to 15, that's a really good target. I would not have imagined on May 1st that the Nats would be in this position to win at least 15 and possibly 16 games in the month of May.
I want to know what Dusty Baker would say about Dylan Cruz's exit velocities on all of these groundouts that Cruz is amassing here. What would Dusty have to say about that?
Let me think. I think Dusty's answer would be, don't tell me about exit velocities. I only want exit hits. And unfortunately, Dylan Cruz has not had enough exit hits so far. Although that rally in the 7th inning, there was a lot of exit hits going on in that 6-run rally.
One of the single greatest quotes by anyone with the Washington Nationals ever. And I don't know if Dusty said it knowing it would be received in a very funny and ironic way, but it goes down as one of the funniest and most ironic quotes in Washington Nationals history. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Nats Chat is on the radio Sunday morning 9 to 10 on ESPN Richmond, which is 106.1 FM in the Richmond, Virginia area, and Sunday morning 9 to 10 on ESPN Radio 94.1 in the Virginia Beach area. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
As Cruz bats with the bases loaded, nobody out. The pitch on the way. Inside and hit him. Cruz is hit by the pitch on the right hand, and that'll bring in a run. They appeal whether he swung the bat. He did not. Abrams will score. Cruz is shaken up a bit with his right hand, but it's now the Padres 3, the Nationals 2.